Get comfortable with English in Comfort Zone. This is your English listening practice podcast to help you learn and improve naturally.
Listen to this for a second, Ariana. Say something in English, but make it sound like how you talk to your friends.
All right. What do you think about the new movie? Heard it's pretty good, but I ain't seen it yet. You planning on checking it out this weekend or what? Maybe we could grab some popcorn and make it a whole thing, you know?
Did you catch all of that? If not, don't worry, you're definitely not alone. A lot of learners tell us they can understand some native speakers perfectly fine when they're speaking slowly and clearly, like in educational videos or formal presentations. But when it comes to real-life conversations with friends, family, or colleagues, it's like, what language is this? It sounds completely different from anything they've studied.
It's absolutely not just you. Native speakers like Ken and me, we talk fast, we mix words together, we use slang that changes every few months, we drop entire syllables from words, and sometimes it honestly sounds like a completely different language from what you learned in textbooks or language apps.
But here's the thing, and this is really important, it's not impossible to understand us. You just need to know what to listen for, what patterns to recognize, and how to train your ear for real-world English. It's like learning to decode a puzzle once you know the tricks.
Exactly, and that's precisely what we're going to dive deep into today. I'm Ariana, by the way, and I've been teaching English conversation for over 8 years.
And I'm Ken. Welcome to English in Comfort Zone, the place where you can learn English while you relax, lie down, take a walk, or even while you sleep. No pressure, no stress, just natural English and interesting topics that actually matter in real life.
Today, we're completely breaking down why native speakers can be so incredibly hard to understand. Don't worry though, we're not going to throw a bunch of boring grammar rules at you or make it overly complicated with linguistic terminology that nobody uses in real conversations.
We'll keep it simple, fun, practical, and most importantly, something you can start using and applying right away. So get comfortable, grab a cup of coffee or tea, maybe put on some comfortable headphones, and let's get started on this journey together.
Before we jump in, I want you to know that if you're struggling to understand native speakers, you're in really good company. I've worked with thousands of English learners over the years, and this is probably the #1 complaint I hear. People will say they can read English perfectly, they understand their teachers clearly, but put them in a coffee shop in New York or London, and suddenly they feel lost.
That's so true. And it's not because you're not smart enough or you haven't studied hard enough. It's because there's a huge gap between textbook English and the way we actually speak in daily life. Think of it like learning to drive. You can read all the manuals you want, but actually getting on the highway with real traffic is a completely different experience.
So let's start with probably one of the biggest reasons learners find native speakers challenging to understand: we talk fast. And not just fast, we also get pretty casual, sometimes even lazy, with how we pronounce things. It's like we're constantly looking for shortcuts in our speech.
That's exactly right. We don't always say every single word clearly and distinctly like you might hear in a language learning app or a BBC News broadcast. Sometimes we mash words together, skip sounds altogether, or completely change how words are supposed to sound according to the dictionary pronunciation.
And it's not that we're trying to be confusing or make life difficult for English learners. It's just how we naturally speak when we're comfortable and relaxed. It's actually a sign of fluency. The more comfortable you are with a language, the more shortcuts you take. Native speakers have been speaking English their whole lives, so we've developed all these efficiency tricks.
Right, and this can be really tricky for learners because it's completely different from what you hear in textbooks, classroom recordings, or even news broadcasts. For example, instead of saying, "What are you doing?" very clearly with each word pronounced separately, we might say, "What you doing?" or even just, "What you up to?" The sounds just blend together naturally.
Or here's another perfect example that I use all the time. Instead of "I don't know," I'd probably say "I dunno." It's faster, it flows better, and it just rolls off the tongue more naturally. Sometimes I even shorten it further to just dunno if I'm being really casual.
And it's not just about speed, it's about how we instinctively change the sounds of words to make them flow together better. Like, "Do you want to go?" becomes "Do you want to go?" And if I'm feeling really casual with close friends, I might just say, "Wanna go?" The do you part almost disappears completely.
This happens constantly in everyday conversations. It's not wrong English, it's just how native speakers naturally talk when they're not in formal situations like job interviews or academic presentations. But for learners, it can feel like we're speaking an entirely different language that they never studied.
That's why it's so crucial to train your ear to catch these patterns and changes. Instead of trying to listen for every single individual word like you might when reading, try to listen for chunks of words or complete phrases. Your brain needs to learn to process speech differently than text.
For example, if you hear what you're doing, try to break it down in your head. What are you doing? Once you start recognizing these common patterns, it becomes so much easier. Your brain literally starts to fill in the gaps automatically, like it's solving a puzzle.
You don't have to catch every single word to understand the meaning. Just focus on getting the main idea, the general message, and the context. Sometimes native speakers don't even pronounce every word clearly, but we understand each other because we're used to these patterns.
Another thing that happens is we use a lot of filler words and sounds that textbooks don't teach. Words like like, and sort of. These words don't really add meaning to the sentence, but they're everywhere in natural speech.
Exactly. If I'm telling a story, I might say, "So I was walking to the store, and I saw this really weird thing, you know? It was I don't know how to describe it, but it was just really strange." That's how people actually talk, with all these filler words and hesitations.
These filler words can actually help you as a listener because they give you time to process what you just heard and prepare for what's coming next. They're like little breaks in the conversation. Now let's move on to another major reason learners struggle with understanding native speakers: the massive difference between classroom English and real-world English. This gap is probably bigger than most people realize.
Classroom English is absolutely fantastic for learning the fundamentals, the grammar rules, and building a solid foundation. But real-life English, well, that's a completely different animal altogether. It's like the difference between learning to swim in a calm pool versus swimming in the ocean with waves and currents.
In class, you learn how to say things perfectly, formally, and according to all the grammar rules. Every sentence is complete, every word is pronounced clearly, and everything follows the textbook patterns. But in real life, almost no one talks like that consistently.
For example, in a classroom setting, you might learn to say, "Could you please complete this form and return it to me when convenient?" But in real life, I'd probably just say, "Can you fill this out real quick?" Or even more casually, "Hey, just fill this out when you get a chance, no rush."
It's faster, it sounds more natural and friendly, and it's how people actually communicate in everyday situations. The classroom version isn't wrong, but it sounds very formal and might even make people think you're being sarcastic or overly polite.
In classrooms, you learn phrases like, "Please open your textbook to page 47," or "Your homework assignment is due tomorrow at 9 am sharp." But how often do you actually hear those exact phrases in everyday conversations? Almost never, unless you're a teacher or still in school.
But even teachers don't always talk that formally in real life. When I'm chatting with colleagues, I might say something like, "Did you check out that new restaurant downtown?" Instead of, "Have you had the opportunity to visit the recently opened dining establishment in the city center?"
Real-world English is packed with slang, phrasal verbs, idioms, cultural references, incomplete sentences, and informal expressions that you rarely encounter in traditional language courses. And that's exactly why it can feel so overwhelming when you step outside the classroom environment.
You've learned one style of speaking: formal, structured, textbook English, but native speakers use a completely different, more relaxed, and varied style in daily life. It's like you learn to dance ballet, but everyone at the party is doing hip hop.
But don't get me wrong, classroom English isn't bad at all. It's super important for building that solid foundation I mentioned. But if you want to truly understand native speakers in natural settings, you absolutely need to expose yourself to real-world English as much as possible.
Think about it this way: in textbooks, you might learn, "I am going to the grocery store to purchase some vegetables." But in real life, I'd say, "I'm going to run to the store and grab some veggies." Same meaning, completely different style.
Or instead of, I apologize for being late to our appointment, you're more likely to hear, sorry I'm late, or my bad, traffic was crazy. The real world versions are shorter, more direct, and use everyday vocabulary.
Another big difference is that classroom English usually presents language in neat, organized chunks. You learn about the past tense in one lesson, future tense in another. But in real conversations, we mix all the tenses together, we jump between topics, we interrupt each other, and we don't always finish our sentences.
Real conversations are messy, unpredictable, and full of tangents. Someone might start telling you about their weekend plans and end up talking about their childhood pet. That's just how natural conversation flows.
Next up, let's talk about accents. This is a huge challenge that many learners underestimate. Native English speakers definitely don't all sound the same. We have dramatically different accents depending on where we're from. And sometimes even these regional differences can be quite extreme.
Think about American versus British versus Australian English. Even within those countries, there are dozens of different regional accents. Like in the US, someone from Texas sounds completely different from someone in New York, who sounds different from someone in California, and they all sound different from someone in Alabama.
And if you're not used to hearing those differences, it can genuinely feel like you're listening to completely different languages, even though it's all English. I remember working with a student who was perfectly comfortable with American English from movies, but then she moved to Scotland and felt completely lost for the first few months.
For example, in the southern United States, people might say y'all instead of you all, and they have a slower, more drawn-out way of speaking. Words like about might sound like a boot, and I might sound more like ah. The rhythm and melody of the speech is completely different.
In New York, people tend to talk much faster and have sharper consonants. They might drop the R sound at the end of words, so car sounds like caw and park sounds like pock. The whole energy of the speech is more intense and rapid fire.
In the UK, they might say cheers instead of thank you, lift instead of elevator, queue instead of line, or brilliant instead of great. It's the same language, but the vocabulary, pronunciation, and even some grammar patterns can be quite different.
And don't even get me started on Scottish English or Irish English. Those can be challenging even for other native English speakers to understand sometimes. I have friends from Glasgow, and when they get excited and start talking fast, even I have to ask them to slow down.
Then you have Australian English with phrases like no worries instead of you're welcome, arvo instead of afternoon, and that distinctive rising intonation that makes statements sound like questions.
That's exactly why accents can be so tricky for learners. You might be perfectly comfortable with one type of English accent from watching American Netflix shows, and then suddenly you're watching a British documentary or talking to someone with a completely different accent, and it throws you off completely.
But here's some good news. You don't have to understand every single accent right away. That would be overwhelming and honestly unnecessary for most people's goals. It's perfectly okay to start with one or two accents that you're most interested in or are most likely to encounter.
If you love American TV shows and movies, maybe start focusing on general American accents. If you're planning to study in the UK or you love British comedy shows, focus on British accents first. If you're moving to Australia, prioritize Australian English.
The key is gradual exposure and patience with yourself. Once you're comfortable with one accent, you can slowly branch out to others. Your ear will become more flexible and adaptable over time, like a muscle that gets stronger with exercise.
I always tell my students to pick their favorite English-speaking actor or YouTuber and watch tons of their content. Get really familiar with how that one person speaks, and then gradually expand to other speakers with similar accents. Okay, let's talk about something that can make native speakers really challenging to understand as slang and informal expressions. These are words and phrases you absolutely won't find in most traditional textbooks, but they're everywhere in real-life conversations, especially among younger speakers.
Slang is like the secret code of native speakers. It's how we make our language more fun, more expressive, more current, and more connected to our specific communities and generations. But it can also make our speech more confusing for learners who haven't been exposed to these informal terms.
For example, if someone says, I can't even, what do you think they mean? They're not actually talking about numbers or math or their ability to count. It means they're so overwhelmed, surprised, shocked, or frustrated that they can't even finish their sentence or complete their thought.
It's kind of dramatic, but people, especially younger speakers, say it all the time. Like, did you see what happened on that reality TV show last night? I can't even. It's a way of expressing that something is so crazy or unbelievable that you're speechless.
Then there's something like that's fire or that's lit, which means something is really exciting, amazing, impressive, or cool. If you go to a great concert, you might say, that show was absolutely fire, or the music was so lit.
What about this one? She ghosted me. A lot of learners might not know this phrase. It means when someone just completely stops replying to your messages, calls, emails, or any form of communication. They disappear from your life like a ghost, without any explanation or goodbye.
It's not a great feeling when it happens to you, but it's become really common, especially in dating and friendship contexts. The term perfectly describes the experience of someone just vanishing without any warning or explanation.
Here's another one that confused people: I'm dead or I'm dying. Don't worry, the person isn't actually dying or in any physical danger. It means they're laughing so hard that they can barely breathe, or they find something extremely funny and hilarious.
Or, that hits different. This means something affects you in a special, unique, or particularly meaningful way. Like, coffee just hits different on Monday mornings. It means coffee is especially satisfying, necessary, or enjoyable on Monday mornings compared to other times.
It's giving is another newer slang phrase. Like, this outfit is giving vintage vibes, means the outfit has a vintage style or feeling. Or, this weather is giving me summer vacation nostalgia, means the weather reminds you of summer vacations.
Say less is a phrase that means I understand or you don't need to explain further. If someone says want to get pizza, you might respond say less, meaning absolutely, you don't need to convince me.
It's not giving what it's supposed to give means something isn't meeting expectations or isn't working well. Like, this new restaurant is not giving what it's supposed to give means the restaurant is disappointing.
And these are just a few examples from recent years. Slang is absolutely everywhere, especially in casual conversations, social media, music, movies, and TV shows. It's a huge part of how we communicate, particularly among younger generations and in informal settings.
But it can be really overwhelming if you're not used to it. The good news is you don't have to learn every single slang word to understand native speakers effectively. Slang also changes pretty quickly. What's popular this year might be outdated next year.
Just focus on the ones you hear most frequently in the content you're consuming, and you'll gradually start to pick up on the patterns and contexts where they're used. Don't worry about memorizing comprehensive slang dictionaries.
Let's talk about another aspect of English that makes native speakers hard to understand: phrasal verbs. These are combinations of verbs with prepositions or particles that create completely new meanings.
Phrasal verbs are everywhere in casual English, but they're often confusing because the meaning usually can't be guessed from the individual words. For example, pick up can mean so many different things depending on the context.
Right. Pick up could mean to physically lift something, to collect someone in your car, to learn a new skill, to improve a situation, to detect a signal, or even to start dating someone casually. Can you pick up some milk? I'll pick you up at 7. She picked up Spanish really quickly. Business is picking up.
Or take hang out. It doesn't mean to literally hang something outside. It means to spend casual time with friends without any specific plans. Want to hang out this weekend? Means, do you want to spend some relaxed time together?
Put up with means to tolerate something annoying or difficult. I can't put up with this noise anymore means I can't tolerate this noise anymore. But if you just know the individual words put, up, and with, you'd never guess that meaning.
Run into can mean to accidentally meet someone you know or to encounter a problem. I ran into my old teacher at the store, or we ran into some technical difficulties with the project.
Breakdown can mean a machine stops working, a person starts crying, or to analyze something in detail. My car broke down. She broke down when she heard the news. Let me break down the budget for you.
The tricky thing is that native speakers use these phrasal verbs constantly in casual conversation, often instead of more formal single-word verbs. We say give up instead of surrender, show up instead of arrive, bring up instead of mention.
And there are hundreds of common phrasal verbs. Turn down, reject, or lower volume. Look after, take care of, come across, find by chance or seem, get along, have a good relationship, fall through, fail to happen, catch up, reach the same level, or update someone.
The good news is that you don't need to memorize all of them at once. Focus on the most common ones you hear repeatedly and pay attention to context clues to help you understand the meaning. Something else that makes understanding native speakers challenging is cultural references. We constantly make references to TV shows, movies, historical events, celebrities, sports, or shared cultural experiences that might not make sense if you're not familiar with a specific culture.
For example, if I say someone's relationship is like Ross and Rachel, other Americans would immediately understand I'm talking about an on and off, complicated romantic relationship, because Ross and Rachel from the TV show Friends had that kind of tumultuous relationship that lasted for years.
Or if someone says it's not rocket science, they mean something is not very difficult or complicated. This phrase comes from the idea that rocket science is extremely complex and requires advanced knowledge, so if something is not rocket science, it should be easy to understand or do.
We also use tons of sports metaphors in American English, even in non-sports contexts. That's a home run, means something is very successful. Strike out means to fail completely. Touch base means to contact someone briefly. Ballpark figure means an approximate number.
Even if you don't follow baseball at all, these expressions are used constantly in business meetings, casual conversations, and everyday situations. People will say things like, let's touch base next week about the project in a work context.
We have references to popular movies too. If someone says, I have a bad feeling about this, they might be referencing Star Wars. Show me the money comes from the movie Jerry Maguire. I'll be back is from Terminator.
Sometimes we reference historical events or figures. Don't drink the Kool-Aid means don't blindly follow something dangerous or suspicious. This comes from a tragic historical event, but it's used now to mean think critically or don't be naive.
Or food references. That's the best thing since sliced bread means something is really wonderful or innovative. Easy as pie means something is very simple. Spill the beans means to reveal a secret.
The key with cultural references is context and not getting too stressed about understanding every single reference. Even if you don't understand the specific reference, you can often figure out the general meaning from the situation, the speaker's tone, and the surrounding conversation.
Plus, if you're curious about a reference you keep hearing, you can always look it up later or ask someone to explain it. Most native speakers are happy to explain cultural references when they realize someone isn't familiar with them.
Another aspect that makes understanding native speakers challenging is how much we communicate through tone, emotion, and vocal inflection rather than just words. The same sentence can mean completely different things depending on how it's said.
Exactly. Take a simple phrase like, that's great. If I say it with genuine enthusiasm, that's great. It means I'm really happy about something. But if I say it with a flat, sarcastic tone, that's great. It actually means the opposite. I'm annoyed or disappointed.
Sarcasm is huge in English-speaking cultures, especially American and British English. We often say the opposite of what we mean to be funny, to show frustration, or to make a point. Oh, wonderful, it's raining again doesn't mean I think rain is wonderful.
Rising intonation can turn statements into questions. You're coming to the party with falling intonation is a statement. You're coming to the party? With rising intonation is a question asking for confirmation.
We also use vocal emphasis to highlight important information. I didn't say she stole the money can have completely different meanings depending on which word you emphasize. I didn't say she stole the money versus I didn't say she stole the money versus I didn't say she stole the money.
Emotional context changes everything too. If someone sounds tired, frustrated, excited, or worried, it affects how you should interpret their words. Fine can mean okay, or it can mean I'm annoyed, but I don't want to argue about it.
So we've talked extensively about why native speakers can be challenging to understand. Now let's dive into what you can actually do to improve your listening skills and comprehension. These are strategies that have worked for thousands of my students over the years.
The first and most important step is to expose yourself to real-world English as much as humanly possible. This means going beyond textbooks and formal learning materials. Watch TV shows, movies, YouTube channels, TikTok videos, listen to podcasts like this one, and even listen to English music with lyrics.
Start with content that has subtitles available if you need them, but try to gradually wean yourself off them as your listening improves. The goal is to train your ear to catch natural speech patterns, rhythm, intonation, and all those casual elements we've been talking about.
Choose content you actually enjoy. If you love cooking, watch English cooking shows. If you're into fitness, follow English-speaking fitness YouTubers. If you love true crime, listen to English podcasts about mysteries. When you're interested in the topic, you'll pay more attention and learn more naturally.
Pay close attention to how people actually talk, the way they combine words, the slang they use, their speaking rhythm, their tone changes, and their body language if you can see them. Don't just passively listen. Actively observe the patterns.
Try shadowing exercises. That's when you listen to a native speaker and repeat what they say immediately after them, trying to match their exact pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. It's like vocal mimicry, and it's incredibly effective for training your mouth and ear to work together.
You can do this with movie scenes, podcast segments, YouTube videos, or even TikTok clips. Start with short clips, maybe 30 seconds to a minute, and gradually work up to longer conversations as you get more comfortable.
Another crucial thing to focus on is phrasal verbs and idiomatic expressions. These are absolutely huge in real-world English and can really trip you up if you're not familiar with them. Make them a priority in your learning.
Keep a vocabulary journal specifically for new slang, phrasal verbs, cultural references, and expressions you encounter. Write down the phrase, its meaning, the context where you heard it, and create your own example sentence to help remember it.
Don't just memorize these phrases passively, try to use them in your own conversations. Practice makes perfect, and actively using new vocabulary helps it stick in your long-term memory much better than just reading about it.
Join online communities, find language exchange partners, or participate in conversation groups where you can practice speaking with native speakers or other advanced learners. Apps like HelloTalk, Tandem, or even Discord servers focused on language learning can be great places to find conversation partners.
Watch the same movies or TV show episodes multiple times. This is really important. The first time, just enjoy the story and don't stress about understanding every word. The second time, focus more on the language and try to catch phrases you missed before. The third time, maybe watch with subtitles to confirm what you thought you heard.
Do the same thing with podcast episodes like this one. Listen to the same episode multiple times over a few days or weeks. You'll be amazed at how much more you understand and pick up on the second, third, or fourth listen.
Practice with different types of content too. Casual conversations between friends sound different from business meetings, which sound different from phone calls, which sound different from public speeches. Each context has its own patterns and vocabulary.
Try listening to content at different speeds. Many podcast apps and YouTube allow you to slow down or speed up audio. Start slower if you need to, then gradually increase to normal speed, and eventually try slightly faster than normal to really challenge your ear.
Before we wrap up, I want to address something really important that doesn't get talked about enough: the emotional side of learning to understand native speakers. This process can be frustrating, and that's completely normal.
It's so true. Many of my students go through periods where they feel like they're not making progress, or they get discouraged when they can't understand a movie or conversation that seems like it should be at their level.
Remember that understanding native speakers is probably the most advanced listening skill in language learning. It's literally the last thing that clicks into place for most learners. You're not behind or slow if you're struggling with this. You're working on graduate-level English skills.
Don't compare yourself to where you think you should be. Compare yourself to where you were 6 months ago or a year ago. I guarantee you've made more progress than you realize. Language learning is gradual and sometimes feels invisible day to day.
It's also okay to ask people to repeat themselves, speak more slowly, or explain something you didn't understand. Native speakers do this with each other all the time. Sorry, could you say that again? Or, what do you mean by that? Are perfectly normal questions.
Most native speakers are actually quite patient and helpful when they realize you're learning English. We're usually impressed that you're putting in the effort to learn our language, and we want to help you succeed.
Set realistic expectations too. You don't need to understand 100% of every conversation to be successful. Even native speakers miss things sometimes, especially in noisy environments or when people are talking quickly.
Focus on understanding the main ideas rather than every single word. If you can follow the general topic and main points of a conversation, that's actually really good comprehension, even if you miss some details.
One thing that's really helped my students is learning to use context clues more effectively. Even when you don't understand specific words or phrases, there's usually enough information around them to help you figure out the general meaning.
Exactly. If someone uses a slang word you don't know, but you can tell from their facial expression that they're excited, and the context is about food, you can make an educated guess that it's probably something positive about the food.
Body language, facial expressions, and the general situation give you tons of information beyond just the words. Use all of that information together to understand what's happening.
Also, remember that language learning isn't linear. You'll have good days where everything seems clear and challenging days where you feel like you understand nothing. Both are normal and part of the process.
The key is consistency rather than perfection. A little bit of listening practice every day is much more effective than cramming for hours once a week. Your brain needs regular exposure to build those neural pathways.
And be patient with yourself. Some days you'll surprise yourself with how much you understand, and other days you might struggle with conversations that seemed easy before. That's just how skill development works in any area, not just language learning.
Before we finish up, I want to address something that many learners worry about unnecessarily. Do you have to sound exactly like a native speaker to be successful in English? Do you need to understand every single accent and every piece of slang?
While sounding like a native speaker is certainly impressive and shows how far you've come in your language journey, it's also completely okay to sound like yourself. Your goal should be clear communication, not perfect imitation.
Everyone has their own unique way of speaking, and that's what makes communication interesting and personal. Even within the same country, native speakers have dramatically different accents, speaking styles, vocabulary preferences, and ways of expressing themselves.
In the UK, for example, someone from London sounds totally different from someone from Scotland, Wales, or Northern England, even though they're all native English speakers. The same goes for American English. There's incredible diversity across different regions and communities.
So while sounding like a native speaker can be an amazing goal to work toward, don't feel discouraged or frustrated if you're not there yet. It takes years of practice, exposure, and patience. Some people achieve it, others don't, and both outcomes are perfectly fine.
The most important thing is effective communication. Can people understand what you're trying to say? Can you understand them well enough to have meaningful conversations? Can you function successfully in English-speaking environments? That's what really matters in practical, everyday situations.
Your accent and your unique way of speaking are part of what makes you who you are. Embrace your individuality while you're learning and improving. Many native speakers find foreign accents charming and interesting, not problematic.
You're doing fantastic just by trying, just by listening to podcasts like this, just by putting yourself out there and practicing. That takes courage, dedication, and persistence. Give yourself credit for the effort you're making.
And remember, even native speakers are always learning new words, expressions, and ways of communicating. Language is alive and constantly changing, so you're joining a lifelong journey that we're all on together.
Time to go over some key words and phrases from today's extended episode before we finish up. These are terms that came up repeatedly and are really useful for everyday conversations.
Breakdown, meaning to explain something in a simple, clear, and detailed way that's easy to understand. Example, let me break down this grammar concept so it's easier for you to understand and apply in real conversations.
Wonder meaning to think about something and be curious about it, to question or ponder something in your mind. Example, I wonder why some English pronunciation rules are so much more complicated than others.
Casual meaning relaxed, informal, not fancy or formal, appropriate for everyday situations. Example, this is just a casual conversation between friends, so don't worry about making small grammar mistakes.
Mash meaning to mix, combine, or press things together, often roughly or quickly. Example, native speakers often mash words together when they speak quickly in casual situations, making it harder for learners to distinguish individual words.
Rolls off the tongue meaning something is easy to say, pronounce, or flows naturally when speaking without effort. Example, his nickname just rolls off the tongue. It's really smooth and natural to say, unlike his formal name.
Messy meaning not neat, organized, or structured. Chaotic, disorganized, or unpredictable. Example, real conversations can be messy and jump between topics, unlike the organized dialogues you find in textbooks.
Throw you off meaning to confuse, distract, or disrupt your concentration, understanding, or expectations. Example, different regional accents can throw you off at first, but you'll gradually get used to them with consistent practice.
Expose yourself to meaning to deliberately put yourself in contact with or experience something regularly. Example, you need to expose yourself to real-world English as much as possible through movies, podcasts, and conversations.
Pick up a phrasal verb with multiple meanings. To physically lift something, to learn something quickly, to improve, or to collect someone. Example, she picked up Spanish really quickly after moving to Mexico, or can you pick me up at 8 p.m.?
Hang out meaning to spend casual, relaxed time with friends without specific plans or activities. Example, want to hang out this weekend? We could just watch movies or go for a walk.
Run into, meaning to accidentally meet someone you know, or to encounter a problem unexpectedly. Example, I ran into my old college roommate at the grocery store yesterday, or we ran into some technical issues with the presentation.
Breakdown, meaning a machine stops working, a person becomes very emotional, or to analyze something in detail. Example, my laptop broke down right before the deadline, or let me break down the budget numbers for you.
Give up meaning to stop trying, to surrender, or to quit something you've been working on. Example, don't give up on learning English just because it's challenging. Every small step counts toward your goal.
Now that we've covered the basics, let's talk about some more advanced strategies for improving your ability to understand native speakers. These techniques have helped many of my advanced students make that final leap to natural comprehension.
One really effective technique is called intensive listening, followed by extensive listening. Intensive listening means focusing really hard on understanding every detail of a short piece of audio, maybe just 2 to 3 minutes long.
You listen to the same short clip multiple times, maybe 5 to 10 times, until you understand almost everything. You might use subtitles, look up unfamiliar words, and really analyze what's happening with the pronunciation and grammar.
Then, extensive listening is the opposite. You listen to longer content, maybe 30 to 60 minutes, without stopping to analyze every detail. You just focus on general comprehension and getting used to the flow of natural speech.
Both types of listening practice are important. Intensive listening builds your detailed understanding and analytical skills, while extensive listening builds your stamina and helps you get comfortable with not understanding every single word.
Another advanced technique is listening to the same content in different formats. For example, you might read a news article, then listen to a podcast discussion about the same topic, then watch a YouTube video analyzing the same events.
This helps because you're already familiar with the vocabulary and concepts, so you can focus more on understanding the different speaking styles, accents, and expressions that different speakers use to talk about the same information.
Try listening to content that's slightly above your current level. If something is too easy, you won't learn much. If it's too difficult, you'll get frustrated. The sweet spot is content where you understand about 70 to 80% and have to work a little to get the rest.
Also, practice listening in different environments and conditions. Real life isn't always perfect audio quality in a quiet room. Practice listening to English with background noise, in cars, on phone calls, or with music playing softly.
This builds your ability to focus on English even when conditions aren't ideal, which is a crucial skill for real-world situations like restaurants, parties, busy streets, or office environments.
Something else that's really important to understand is that native speakers have very different communication styles depending on their personality, background, and the situation they're in.
Some people are very direct and say exactly what they mean. Others are more indirect and expect you to read between the lines. Some people talk a lot and give tons of details, while others are very brief and to the point.
For example, if someone from a very direct culture says that presentation needs work, they mean exactly that the presentation has problems that need to be fixed. But someone from a more indirect culture might say that presentation is interesting. Maybe we could explore some different approaches.
Both speakers are giving the same feedback: the presentation needs improvement, but they're expressing it in completely different ways. Learning to recognize these different styles helps you understand what people really mean.
Regional and cultural differences play a big role too. Southern Americans might be more indirect and polite in their criticism, while New Yorkers might be more blunt and direct. British speakers often use understatement if they say something is quite good. They might actually mean it's excellent.
Generation differences matter too. Older speakers might use more formal language and complete sentences, while younger speakers might use more slang, abbreviations, and casual grammar.
Professional contexts have their own communication styles. Business meetings, academic conferences, medical appointments, and legal consultations all have different vocabulary, formality levels, and conversation patterns.
The key is to pay attention to context and adjust your expectations accordingly. A casual conversation with teenagers will sound completely different from a business presentation, even though both are native English speakers.
One of the biggest challenges for learners is when native speakers talk really fast or when multiple people are talking at the same time. This happens constantly in real life, but almost never in textbooks.
When people get excited, emotional, or comfortable with each other, speech speed can increase dramatically. Words blend together even more than usual, and the rhythm becomes very rapid and flowing.
In group conversations, people interrupt each other, finish each other's sentences, talk over each other, and jump between topics quickly. It can feel chaotic if you're not used to it.
The good news is that you don't need to catch every word in these fast-paced conversations. Focus on the general energy, emotion, and main topics. Are people happy, frustrated, excited, or concerned? What are they generally talking about?
Listen for key words and phrases that signal topic changes. Words like anyway, speaking of, that reminds me, by the way, and oh, I forgot to mention often introduce new topics or important information.
In overlapping conversations, try to follow one speaker at a time rather than attempting to understand everyone simultaneously. Pick the person whose voice is clearest or whose topic interests you most.
Practice with content that includes natural group conversations. Reality TV shows, podcast discussions with multiple hosts, or YouTube videos with several people talking can help you get used to this more chaotic style of communication.
Remember that even native speakers sometimes can't follow everything in very fast or overlapping conversations. It's normal to miss things or need clarification in these situations.
Let's talk about how you can use technology to improve your listening skills. There are so many tools available now that weren't around even just a few years ago.
Streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime have great subtitle options. You can watch with English subtitles, your native language subtitles, or no subtitles at all. Try different combinations to challenge yourself.
YouTube has automatic captions on most videos and you can adjust the playback speed. Start at 0.75x speed if normal speed is too fast, then gradually work your way up to 1.25x or 1.5x speed for extra practice.
Podcast apps often have transcript features now, so you can read along while listening. This helps you connect written English with spoken English and catch things you might have missed.
Language learning apps like Fluent or Yabla are specifically designed to help with listening comprehension. They use real-world videos with interactive subtitles and comprehension exercises.
Voice recognition software can help you practice speaking and pronunciation. If your phone can understand what you're saying, it's a good sign that native speakers will too.
But remember, technology is just a tool. The most important thing is still getting real practice with real people in real conversations. Use technology to supplement your learning, not replace human interaction.
The most successful students I've worked with are those who make listening to English a regular part of their daily routine, not just something they do during study time.
Find ways to incorporate English listening into activities you already do. Listen to English podcasts while exercising, cooking, or commuting. Watch English YouTube videos during lunch breaks. Put on English music while doing household chores.
Create what I call a listening environment in your daily life. Change your phone's language to English. Listen to English radio in the car. Follow English speakers on social media.
The goal is to make English a natural part of your day rather than something you have to remember to practice. When it becomes automatic, you'll get much more exposure without it feeling like work.
Track your progress, but don't get obsessed with it. Maybe once a month, go back and listen to something that was challenging a few months ago. You'll probably be surprised at how much easier it seems.
Celebrate small victories. Understanding a joke, catching a cultural reference, or following a fast conversation are all achievements worth acknowledging. Language learning is a marathon, not a sprint.
As we wrap up this extended episode, I want to leave you with some final thoughts and encouragement. Learning to understand native speakers is challenging, but it's absolutely achievable with the right approach and mindset.
Remember that every native speaker you'll ever meet was once a baby who couldn't understand any language at all. They learned through constant exposure, making mistakes, and gradually building their skills over many years. You're doing the same thing, just at a different stage of life.
Your brain is incredibly good at finding patterns and making connections. Trust the process. Even when you feel like you're not making progress, your brain is working behind the scenes, building neural pathways and improving your comprehension abilities.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes or admit when you don't understand something. Every misunderstanding is a learning opportunity. Every conversation, even difficult ones, is practice that makes you better.
Connect with other English learners who are on the same journey. Share experiences, practice together, and support each other. Learning a language can sometimes feel lonely, but you're definitely not alone in this challenge.
Set realistic expectations and be patient with yourself. Some days will be better than others. Some conversations will be easier than others. That's completely normal and doesn't mean you're not progressing.
Focus on communication and connection rather than perfection. The goal is to understand and be understood, to build relationships, and to access the opportunities that English can provide in your life.
Keep exposing yourself to different types of English from different speakers in different contexts. Variety is key to building flexible listening skills that work in real-world situations.
Most importantly, try to enjoy the process. Language learning is a journey of discovery. You're not just learning words and grammar, you're gaining access to new cultures, perspectives, ideas, and relationships.
Every podcast you listen to, every movie you watch, every conversation you have in English is bringing you closer to your goals. Trust yourself, be consistent, and celebrate how far you've already come.
We really hope this comprehensive episode has given you practical strategies, realistic expectations, and the confidence to keep pushing forward in your English learning journey.
Remember, understanding native speakers isn't just about language skills, it's about cultural awareness, pattern recognition, and building confidence in uncertain situations. These are valuable life skills that extend far beyond language learning.
If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a comment. We absolutely love hearing from our listeners and learning about your English learning experiences, challenges, and successes.
If you have specific questions, topics you'd like us to cover, situations where you struggle to understand native speakers, or success stories you'd like to share, please let us know. Your feedback helps us create better content.
You can find us on social media, and we try to respond to as many messages as possible. We're genuinely here to support your English learning adventure and celebrate your progress with you.
Thanks so much for spending this time with us on English in Comfort Zone. Remember, every moment you spend listening to English, thinking in English, or practicing English is making you stronger and more confident.
Keep going, stay motivated, trust the process, and most importantly, enjoy this incredible journey of language learning. You're doing amazing things, and we're proud of the effort you're putting in.
Have a wonderful day, week, and month ahead. Keep practicing, keep listening, and keep believing in yourself. We'll see you in the next episode.
Until next time, this has been English in Comfort Zone with Ken and Oriana. Thanks for listening, and remember, you've got this.